The words came out so casually, like she was asking me to pick up milk on the way home. Can we pretend we're not together tonight? There will be important people there, and I need to make connections. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reviewing network security protocols for a client. Ayla stood in the doorway of our home office, already dressed for her event in that black cocktail dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her auburn hair was pulled back in what she called her power look, and her makeup was flawless. She looked like success personified, which was exactly the image she'd cultivated since landing her position at Meridian Public Relations 3 years ago. Important people, I repeated, keeping my voice neutral. My fingers stayed poised over the keyboard, but my mind had already shifted into a different mode entirely. What kind of important people? Potential clients, industry leaders, the kind of connections that could make or break my career trajectory. She adjusted her earrings, checking her reflection in the glass of a framed photo on the wall. The irony wasn't lost on me. It was our wedding picture. You understand, right? Sometimes image matters more than we'd like to admit. I understood plenty, more than she realized. Of course, I said, closing the laptop with a soft click. I'll drive you there myself. The relief that washed over her face told me everything I needed to know about how much this meant to her, or rather, how much she thought it meant to her future. She came over and kissed my cheek, leaving the faintest trace of lipstick that I didn't bother to wipe away. You're the best, Rhett. I knew you'd get it. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to the entrance of the Pinnacle Hotel downtown. The valet parking was already busy with luxury cars, and I could see well-dressed people streaming into the lobby. Ayla checked her appearance one more time in the passenger mirror. I'll probably be late, she said, not looking at me. These things tend to run long when the networking is good. Take all the time you need, I told her. Make those connections. She squeezed my hand briefly before getting out. I watched her walk through the hotel entrance, her confidence evident in every step. She didn't look back. The drive home took 15 minutes through the downtown traffic. Our condo was on the 20th floor of a converted office building, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the city skyline. It was the kind of place that impressed visitors, and looked great in social media photos. Ayla had insisted we stretch our budget for it when we moved in 2 years ago. I poured myself a glass of water and sat down at the kitchen island with my laptop. The security protocols could wait. I had more pressing matters to address. The first step was confirming what I already knew. I pulled up the lease agreement from our shared cloud storage. The apartment was in my name only, a detail that had seemed unimportant when we signed it, since my credit score was higher and the application process was simpler that way. Ayla had been grateful at the time, calling it one less hassle to deal with. Next, I reviewed our financial arrangements. The checking account was joint, but the savings account that funded it was mine. The car she'd taken to events like this, a leased BMW that photographed well, was registered under my name and insured through my policy. Another convenience that had made sense at the time. I opened a new document and began typing. Notice to quit and surrender possession of premises. To Ayla Derek Vossen. You are hereby required to quit and surrender possession of the above-described premises to the undersigned on or before. The legal language felt appropriate, clinical, professional. I'd learned enough about tenant law from helping clients with their business relocations to know exactly what needed to be included. By 10:30, the notice was complete, printed, and placed in an envelope. I scheduled it for delivery first thing in the morning through a process service I'd used for client contract deliveries, reliable, professional, and thoroughly documented. The car keys were next. I took the elevator down to the parking garage and drove the BMW to a public lot 3 blocks away. The overnight parking fee was reasonable, and the location was safe, but inconvenient. I walked back through the cool evening air, taking my time. Back in the apartment, I accessed our joint checking account online and transferred the funds to my personal savings. Not theft, the money was as much mine as hers, but a necessary step in establishing new boundaries. I left enough to cover her immediate expenses for a few days. I wasn't cruel. My phone buzzed with a text message at 11:15. Party winding down earlier than expected. Where are you? I set the phone aside without responding and made myself a cup of coffee. The city lights stretched out below our windows, thousands of people going about their evening routines, unaware that my own routine was about to change dramatically. Another text came 20 minutes later. Getting a ride home. See you soon. I finished my coffee and went to bed. Not to sleep. I wasn't tired, but because I wanted to be resting comfortably when she arrived. The performance would be more effective that way. The sound of her key in the lock came at 12:45. I heard her heels on the hardwood floor, then silence as she presumably noticed the envelope on the kitchen island. Her footsteps moved toward our bedroom. Rhett? Her voice was uncertain. What's this paperwork on the counter? I sat up in bed and turned on the bedside lamp. Legal documents. I think they're self-explanatory. She appeared in the doorway holding the eviction notice, still wearing her cocktail dress, but looking significantly less composed than when she'd left. This isn't funny. What's going on? You asked to pretend we weren't together tonight, I said calmly. I'm making it official. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally something approaching panic. You can't be serious. This is about the party, about networking. Check the driveway, I suggested. Then check the bank account. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked quickly toward the front door. I heard it open, then close again. Her heels clicked rapidly across the floor as she went to the home office where we kept the computer. The silence that followed told me she'd found what I expected her to find. When she returned to the bedroom, her carefully constructed composure had completely cracked. You moved my car. You took the money. Over what? A simple request about appearances? Nothing simple about it, I replied. You wanted to act single for the evening. Congratulations. You got your wish. This is insane. It was just business, Rhett. Image management. You know how these industry events work. I knew exactly how they worked. I also knew that her explanation was only part of the story, though I suspected she didn't realize how much I'd already figured out. The notice gives you 30 days, I said. That's generous, considering. Considering what? That I wanted to focus on my career for one evening? Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at it, declined the call, then looked back at me with something approaching desperation. We can talk about this, she said. Work it out. This doesn't have to be nuclear. You're right, I agreed. It doesn't have to be. But it's going to be. She tried calling me twice after I turned off the light. I didn't answer. Eventually, I heard her moving around the apartment, presumably gathering some immediate necessities. The guest bedroom door closed around 2 a.m. I lay awake for another hour, not from stress or second thoughts, but from anticipation. The evening had been just the beginning. Ayla had wanted to make connections at her networking event. Tomorrow, she'd discover what disconnection really meant. I woke up at 6:30 to the sound of Ayla's voice in the living room. She was on the phone speaking in the hushed but urgent tone people use when they're trying to manage a crisis without admitting it's a crisis. I know it's early, but I need a favor. Can you pick me up for coffee? I'll explain everything when you get here. I recognized the cadence of someone calling their support network. Good. She'd need all the help she could get. I made coffee and toast, taking my time with the morning routine. Through the kitchen window, I could see the empty parking space where her BMW usually sat. The absence was more noticeable than I'd expected. Ayla emerged from the guest bedroom wearing yesterday's dress and a defeated expression. Her makeup had been removed, revealing the stress lines around her eyes that usually stayed hidden under foundation. We need to talk, she said. We talked last night. That wasn't talking. That was you having some kind of breakdown. She sat down across from me at the kitchen island, uninvited. Look, I get that you're upset. Maybe I should have phrased the request differently. But this reaction is completely disproportionate. I sipped my coffee and waited for her to continue. She'd always been more comfortable filling silence than sitting with it. The party was important, Rhett. There were people there who could change everything for my career. I needed to present myself as available, as someone they could work with directly. Having a husband there would have complicated that dynamic. Available? I repeated. Interesting word choice. Available for business opportunities, professional networking. Don't twist this into something it wasn't. My phone buzzed with a notification. The process server confirming delivery of additional documents I'd prepared that morning. Ayla's termination from the lease was just the first step. Your ride's here, I said, nodding toward the window where a silver Honda had pulled up to the curb. She looked confused for a moment, then glanced at her phone. That's Jennifer. I called her earlier. She stood up, smoothing down her dress. This conversation isn't over. Yes, it is. She stared at me, perhaps finally realizing that I wasn't going to negotiate or compromise. I'll be back this afternoon. We'll figure this out like adults. The locks will be changed by then. Her face went pale. You can't do that. I live here. Check the lease again. You're a guest who's overstayed her welcome. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. The legal reality was sinking in. After a moment, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. This isn't over, Rhett. You're right, I called after her. It's just getting started. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I finished my breakfast in peace, then called the locksmith. Professional installation, same-day service, electronic locks with codes I could change remotely. Technology had its advantages. Next, I called my office and arranged to work from home for the rest of the week. As a network security consultant, I had the flexibility to handle most of my responsibilities remotely. My clients valued results over FaceTime, which meant I could focus on personal matters without professional consequences. The third call was to a private investigator I'd used for corporate background checks. Sometimes you need to verify that potential business partners are who they claim to be. I need surveillance on someone, I told him. Comprehensive social media monitoring, public record search, and discreet observation. Someone who's been making new connections recently. Personal or professional matter? Both. I gave him Ayla's information and the details about last night's event. He'd have preliminary results within 48 hours. By noon, the locks were changed, and I had new codes programmed into my phone. The locksmith was efficient and discreet, asking no questions about why a man might need to secure his own apartment. I spent the afternoon working on legitimate client projects, but part of my attention was on my phone. Ayla had called 6 times and sent 12 text messages, escalating from confusion to anger to something approaching panic. I read them all, but didn't respond. At 3 o'clock, my building's concierge called to let me know that a woman was in the lobby claiming to live in my unit, but couldn't provide proper identification or access codes. Did I want them to let her up? No, I said. She's been served with an eviction notice. Building security shouldn't allow unauthorized access. Understood, sir. Should we call the police if she becomes disruptive? Use your judgment. Document everything. 20 minutes later, Ayla called from the lobby. The concierge won't let me up. This is ridiculous, Rhett. I live there. Not anymore. You can't just lock me out of my own home. It's not your home. It never was. Check the lease. I have belongings there. Personal property. You can't just steal my things. I'm not stealing anything. Your belongings will be properly inventoried and made available for pickup at a mutually convenient time, with proper notice. The line went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Less anger, more calculation. What do you want, Rhett? Money? An apology? What's it going to take to end this? Nothing you're prepared to give. Try me. Complete honesty about last night, about who you were networking with and what kind of connections you were really making. Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know what you think happened, but you're wrong. Am I? Yes. And when you come to your senses, you're going to realize you've destroyed our marriage over a misunderstanding. Our marriage was destroyed long before last night. I just made it official. I ended the call and turned off my phone. The private investigator would contact me through encrypted email when he had results. Until then, I had work to do. The afternoon was productive. I completed 2 security audits and started preliminary work on a new client proposal. Focusing on professional responsibilities helped maintain perspective. This wasn't about emotion or revenge. It was about establishing appropriate boundaries and consequences. At 6 o'clock, I ordered dinner from a restaurant that delivered and settled in to wait for the investigator's first report. Ayla had wanted to network with important people. Soon, I'd know exactly who those people were and what kind of connections she'd been so eager to make. The truth, I suspected, would be more interesting than her version of events. The investigator's preliminary report arrived at 8:15 that evening, delivered through an encrypted email with attachments that painted a very different picture of Ayla's networking event. The first attachment was a series of social media screenshots from the party. Ayla appeared in multiple photos posted by other attendees, but she wasn't alone in any of them. In every image, she was positioned close to the same man, tall, well-dressed, expensive watch, confident smile, the kind of man who looked like he belonged at industry events. The second attachment identified him, Liam Archer, Senior Vice President of Business Development at North Point Capital. Married, 2 children, home in the suburbs worth just over $2 million. More importantly, his company was actively acquiring marketing and public relations firms. The third attachment was the most revealing. Screenshots of social media posts from other party attendees, including several that showed Ayla and Liam in what could generously be called intimate conversation. One photo showed them on a balcony, away from the main party, with Ayla's hand on his arm and their faces close together. But the real revelation was in the fourth attachment, a video clip posted to someone's Instagram story. 15 seconds of Ayla laughing at something Liam had said, then leaning in to whisper something in his ear. His reaction was immediate and obvious, the kind of smile that had nothing to do with business networking. I forwarded the files to a secure folder and called the investigator. "How much of this is public?" I asked. "Everything I sent you was posted openly on social media. No hacking required. People document everything these days, especially at industry events. They want to show they were there, that they were connected." "What about the man, Liam Archer?" "Interesting background. His company has been aggressively expanding their portfolio of service firms. They've acquired 4 marketing companies in the past 18 months, always with the same pattern. They identify key personnel, establish relationships, then make acquisition offers that are hard to refuse. And if the key personnel happen to be married, that doesn't seem to be a consideration in their business model." I thanked him and ended the call. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture that was both worse and more predictable than I'd initially thought. Ayla hadn't just wanted to pretend we weren't married for one evening. She'd been positioning herself for something much more significant, a career opportunity that apparently required her to present herself as available in every sense of the word. My phone buzzed with a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Jennifer, Ayla's friend. She's staying with me tonight. She says you've lost your mind and locked her out. What's really going on?" I considered ignoring it, then decided that Ayla's support network deserved to understand the situation as clearly as she did. I replied with a simple message. "Ask her about Liam Archer." The response came back within minutes. "Who?" I attached one of the photos from the investigator's report, the balcony shot that showed Ayla and Liam in their private moment. This time, the response took longer. "Oh, then, she said it was just networking." I sent the video clip. The final response was even shorter. "I see." 20 minutes later, Ayla called from Jennifer's phone. "Jennifer showed me what you sent her. Those photos are taken completely out of context." "What context would make them appropriate?" "Business context. Liam's company is looking to partner with firms like Meridian. I was exploring opportunities. On a balcony. Alone. Whispering in his ear. It was a private conversation about confidential business matters." "I'm sure it was." "You're being paranoid and destructive, Rhett. Even if you were right, which you're not. This kind of reaction is insane." "What kind of reaction would be appropriate?" "A conversation. Like adults. Like married people who trust each other." "Trust is earned. You spent it all last night." She was quiet for a moment, then tried a different approach. "Fine. Let's say you're right about everything. Let's say I was interested in Liam for more than business reasons. Is that worth destroying our entire life together?" "Our life together was already destroyed. I just stopped pretending otherwise." "That's not true. When's the last time you introduced me to your colleagues? When's the last time you included me in your professional events? When's the last time you acted like being married to me was something you were proud of instead of something you had to manage?" The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if she'd ended the call. "It's not that simple," she finally said. "It's exactly that simple. My career is important to me. Sometimes that requires making difficult choices about image and positioning." "Your career is more important than your marriage. I understand that now. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You made it one or the other when you asked me to pretend we weren't together. For one evening. For one professional opportunity. How many other evenings have there been that I don't know about?" Another long pause. "You're not being fair," she said. "I'm being accurate." "What do you want, Rhett? What's it going to take to fix this?" "Nothing can fix this, but there are things that can make it worse." "Like what?" "Keep lying to me. Keep pretending this was about business networking. Keep acting like I'm the problem for noticing what you've been doing." "I haven't been doing anything." "Then we have nothing more to discuss." I ended the call and turned off the phone again. The investigator would continue monitoring Ayla's activities and social media presence. By tomorrow, I'd have a complete picture of her professional and personal connections. But I already knew enough to understand that last night hadn't been an isolated incident. It had been the culmination of a pattern that had probably been developing for months. Ayla had been networking, all right, just not the kind she'd admitted to. The question now was whether she'd continue the pattern or adapt to the new reality I'd created. Either way, the consequences would be entirely her choice. I made myself a late dinner and settled in to review the investigator's files more carefully. Knowledge was power, and I intended to be very powerful in the days ahead. The investigator's second report arrived the next morning with information that confirmed my suspicions and raised new questions. Liam Archer had called in sick to work, which was unusual for someone who apparently never missed important meetings. More interesting, Ayla had been spotted at a coffee shop near North Point Capital's offices at 9 in the morning, despite supposedly staying at Jennifer's house across town. I forwarded the surveillance photos to my secure folder and began planning the next phase. Ayla's professional reputation was built on image management and strategic communication. She understood better than most people how quickly a carefully constructed public persona could be damaged by the wrong kind of attention. That knowledge would make her more cautious, but also more vulnerable. I spent the morning researching North Point Capital's recent acquisitions and business practices. The pattern the investigator had mentioned was even more obvious when viewed chronologically. They identified successful smaller firms, established personal relationships with key decision-makers, then made acquisition offers that were structured to benefit individuals, rather than companies. The personal relationships were always with married women in senior positions. The acquisition offers always included lucrative consulting contracts for those same women. The consulting work could be done remotely, often from different cities, which made it convenient for people who might want to relocate. Liam Archer wasn't just networking with Ayla. He was recruiting her for a very specific kind of business arrangement. My phone rang at 11:30. Ayla, calling from her own number this time. "I want to come get some of my things," she said without preamble. "Make a list. I'll have them delivered. I want to get them myself, from my own apartment." "It's not your apartment. We've established that." "Fine. From the apartment where I've been living for 2 years, where my belongings are stored, where my life is." "Your life is wherever you choose to build it now." "Don't be cryptic, Rhett. This is hard enough without you playing games." "I'm not playing anything. I'm being direct. You wanted independence? You have it." "I wanted one evening of professional flexibility. You've turned it into a complete breakdown of our relationship." "The breakdown happened before last night. Last night just made it visible." She was quiet for a moment, then tried a different approach. "Liam called me this morning. He wants to meet about the consulting opportunity we discussed." "I'm sure he does. It's a legitimate business opportunity, a chance to advance my career beyond what's possible at Meridian. Congratulations. The position would require relocation to Chicago. It's a significant opportunity." I understood what she was really saying. The exit strategy was already in motion. Liam had made his offer, and she was considering it. "When?" I asked. "When what?" "When would you relocate?" "It's just an initial conversation. Nothing's been decided." "But if you were to accept the position, when would it start?" "Within 60 days, but that's hypothetical." 60 days, I repeated. "Convenient timing." "What do you mean?" "Nothing. I hope the opportunity works out for you." The surprise in her voice was obvious. "You're not going to fight this?" "Fight what?" "Your career advancement? Your independence? Your chance to network with important people in a new city? You're not going to try to stop me?" "Why would I stop you from pursuing what you want?" "Because we're married. Because we have a life together. Because this affects both of us. We were married, past tense. And you've made it clear that our life together was limiting your professional opportunities." "That's not what I said. It's what you demonstrated." She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, less defensive, more uncertain. "What if I turned down the opportunity? What if I stayed and we worked on fixing things?" "Do you want to turn it down?" "I want to fix our marriage." "That's not what I asked." Another pause. "The opportunity is significant. Life-changing, potentially. Then you should take it." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You don't care that I'd be moving across the country? I care that you'd be getting what you want. What I want is a successful career and a successful marriage. You can't have both. Not with me. Not anymore." "Because of one evening?" "Because of what one evening revealed about what you really want." She ended the call without saying goodbye. I wasn't surprised. The conversation had clarified things for both of us in ways that probably made her uncomfortable. I called the investigator and asked him to expand surveillance to include Liam Archer's activities. If Ayla was going to pursue the Chicago opportunity, I wanted to understand exactly what she was walking into. The afternoon brought 2 interesting developments. First, Ayla's friend Jennifer called to ask if I was completely insane and to inform me that Ayla was devastated by my reaction to what Jennifer now called a simple professional networking event. I asked Jennifer if she'd ever met Liam Archer. "No, but Ayla says he's offering her an amazing opportunity." "I'm sure he is." "You don't sound concerned." "I'm not. She's your wife. She's an adult who can make her own decisions about her career and her future. You're just going to let her move to Chicago?" I'm going to let her do whatever she thinks is best for her. Jennifer seemed confused by this response. She'd apparently expected me to be more possessive or controlling. When I didn't fit that narrative, she didn't know how to continue the conversation. The second development was more significant. The investigator sent me a photo of Liam Archer leaving his office early, followed by surveillance footage of him meeting Ayla at an upscale restaurant downtown. They sat close together, leaning across the table, having what appeared to be an intense conversation. The body language was unmistakable. This wasn't a business lunch. I saved the photos and went back to my legitimate work. My client's network security needs provided a useful distraction from the ongoing drama of my dissolving marriage. But part of my attention remained focused on the question of what Ayla would choose. The Chicago opportunity was real. I'd verified that through my own research. Liam Archer had the authority to make the offer he'd apparently made. North Point Capital had the resources to follow through. The question was whether Ayla understood what accepting the offer would really mean, not just for her career, but for her relationship with Liam and her future independence. I suspected she was about to get an education in the difference between networking and being recruited. The lesson might be more expensive than she anticipated. Ayla made her decision on Friday afternoon. She called to inform me that she'd accepted the consulting position with North Point Capital and would be relocating to Chicago within 6 weeks. It's an incredible opportunity, she said, her voice carrying a forced enthusiasm that didn't quite mask the uncertainty underneath. The salary is double what I'm making at Meridian, plus equity participation and a relocation package. Congratulations. Liam says the Chicago market is perfect for someone with my background. Lots of growth potential, less competition than the coastal markets. I'm sure Liam knows the market well. He's been very helpful in explaining the opportunity and the transition process. I imagine he has. She was quiet for a moment, perhaps waiting for me to say something more. When I didn't, she continued. I'll need to get my things from the apartment. My professional wardrobe, personal items, documents. Make a list. I'll have everything packed and ready for pickup. I'd prefer to handle it myself. That's not going to work. Why not? Because you don't live here anymore. You're not a tenant and you're not welcome as a guest. This is ridiculous, Rhett. We're both adults. We can handle this professionally. We are handling it professionally. You're a former occupant requesting access to retrieve personal property. I'm the property owner establishing reasonable boundaries for that access. Former occupant, she repeated. Is that what I am now? What would you prefer to be called? Your wife. You stopped being my wife when you asked me to pretend we weren't married. For one evening, for one professional opportunity, which led to another professional opportunity, which led to a relocation across the country, which led to you building a new life with someone else. I'm not building a life with Liam. This is about my career. If you say so, you don't believe me. I don't think it matters what I believe. You've made your choice. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, less certain. What if I changed my mind? What if I turned down the position and stayed? Do you want to change your mind? I want to know if it would make a difference. It wouldn't. You won't even consider trying to work things out? There's nothing to work out. You've shown me who you are and what you want. I believe you. What I want is a successful career. That doesn't mean I don't want our marriage. You can't have both. Not with me. Not after this. Because I had lunch with a potential business partner? Because you've been having lunches with a potential business partner for weeks, and you never mentioned it. Because you asked me to pretend we weren't married so you could pursue opportunities I wasn't supposed to know about. Because when those opportunities required you to relocate, you didn't hesitate to accept. You've been watching me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. You had me followed. I had the truth verified. Your version of events wasn't adding up. What truth? That this isn't about one evening or one opportunity. It's about a pattern of choices you've been making for months. Choices that prioritized your career advancement over our relationship. My career is important to me. I understand that. And now, you're free to pursue it without any limitations. I don't want to be free. I want to be married. You want to be married to someone who won't interfere with your professional ambitions. That's not me. It could be. No, it couldn't. Because I won't pretend our marriage is less important than your networking opportunities. She ended the call without responding to that. 2 hours later, Jennifer called again. Ayla's crying, she said without preamble. She says you won't even consider counseling or trying to work things out. There's nothing to work out. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. She made a choice, multiple choices, over an extended period of time. You're being unforgiving. I'm being realistic. She loves you. She loves the security of being married while pursuing other opportunities. That's not the same thing. You don't know that. I know she accepted a job in Chicago with a man she's been secretly meeting for weeks. I know she asked me to pretend we weren't married so she could network more effectively. I know she never hesitated when choosing between our relationship and her career advancement. Maybe the job offer is legitimate. I'm sure it is. That doesn't make her reasons for accepting it any less clear. What are you going to do? Nothing. She's an adult. She can live with the consequences of her choices. What about divorce? What about it? Are you going to file? Eventually, when it's convenient. You're really going to let her move to Chicago without fighting for your marriage? I'm going to let her do what she's already decided to do. Jennifer seemed as confused by this response as she'd been by our previous conversation. The expectation seemed to be that I would either fight to keep Ayla or punish her for leaving. Neither reaction fit the narrative people wanted to impose on the situation. I spent the evening packing Ayla's belongings: professional clothes, personal items, documents, photographs. Everything that belonged to her or represented her presence in the apartment. I was thorough and careful, treating her possessions with the same respect I'd want for my own. By midnight, everything was boxed and labeled, ready for pickup or delivery. The apartment looked different without her things. Cleaner, simpler, more obviously mine. I made a final cup of coffee and sat by the windows, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Ayla was probably making plans for her new life in Chicago. Making lists, scheduling meetings, coordinating with Liam about the transition. In 6 weeks, she'd be gone. Our marriage would be effectively over, even if the paperwork took longer to finalize. The interesting thing was how little I felt about that prospect. Not anger or sadness or regret, just a kind of calm certainty that this was how things were supposed to end. Ayla had wanted independence and career advancement and the freedom to pursue opportunities without limitations. Now she had all of those things. I had wanted honesty and respect and a partner who valued our relationship as much as I did. Now, I knew that wasn't possible with her. We were both getting what we actually wanted, even if it wasn't what we'd thought we wanted when we got married. The truth, it turned out, was simpler than either of us had expected. The moving truck arrived on a Tuesday morning 6 weeks later. Ayla supervised the loading of her belongings while I worked from the home office, handling client calls and pretending not to notice the activity in the rest of the apartment. She knocked on the office door when they were finished. "That's everything," she said. "The movers will deliver it to my new place in Chicago tomorrow." Good. Liam found me a furnished apartment near the North Point offices. Short-term lease while I look for something permanent. Convenient. She stood in the doorway for a moment, perhaps waiting for me to say something more significant. When I didn't, she tried again. "The divorce papers should be straightforward. No children, no shared property, clean separation. I'll have my lawyer handle it. Mine too, should be finalized within 90 days. Fine. Rhett." I looked up from my laptop. "What?" "I want you to know that I never intended for things to end this way. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I think you believe I planned all of this. I think you made choices based on what was important to you. The ending was inevitable once you made those choices. What if I had made different choices? You didn't. But if I had? There's no point in discussing hypotheticals. She was quiet for a moment, then tried once more. Are you happy with how this turned out? I'm satisfied. That's not the same thing. It's enough. She nodded slowly, then stepped back from the doorway. I'll send you my new address once I'm settled, for the legal paperwork. Fine. Goodbye, Rhett. Goodbye. I heard her footsteps across the hardwood floor, then the sound of the front door closing. A few minutes later, the moving truck started up and pulled away from the building. I finished my client call, then walked through the apartment. It looked exactly as it had before Ayla moved in 2 years ago. Clean, organized, unambiguously mine. The only evidence of her presence was a faint scent of her perfume that would fade within a few days. My phone buzzed with a text message from the private investigator. Surveillance complete unless you need additional services. I replied, no longer necessary. Send final invoice. The investigation had served its purpose. I now knew exactly what Ayla had been doing, who she'd been doing it with, and what she'd been planning. The knowledge hadn't changed the outcome, but it had prevented any surprises. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Simple, clean, uncontested. Ayla had been right about that much. No children, no shared property, no complications. I received one update about her new life through Jennifer, who called to tell me that Ayla was doing well in Chicago and really happy with her career growth. Jennifer didn't mention Liam specifically, but she did say that Ayla had made some good connections in her new city. I thanked Jennifer for the update and asked her not to call again. That chapter was closed. 6 months after that, I saw a brief mention of North Point Capital in a business journal. They had acquired another marketing firm, this time in Denver. The acquisition was structured as a consulting arrangement with the firm's senior vice president, a married woman who would be relocating to manage the transition. The pattern continued. I closed the article and went back to my own work. My consulting business had grown significantly since Ayla left, partly because I was able to focus completely on client needs without managing the complications of a deteriorating marriage. I'd also started dating again, though casually. Nothing serious, nothing that required pretending to be someone I wasn't, or managing image considerations for someone else's career advancement. It was simpler that way, more honest. Sometimes I thought about the evening when Ayla had asked me to pretend we weren't together. The request that had seemed so small at the time, but had revealed something much larger about what she wanted and who she was. She'd gotten what she wanted: independence, career advancement, freedom to pursue opportunities without limitations. The cost had been our marriage, but that had apparently been an acceptable trade-off. I'd gotten what I wanted too, though I hadn't realized it at the time. Honesty, clarity, a life that didn't require pretending or managing someone else's version of reality. The night she networked had been the beginning of the end, but it had also been the beginning of something better, for both of us, in different ways. Sometimes the most important connections are the ones you choose not to make, and sometimes the most important choice is knowing when to stop pretending.